Grow an actively managed portfolio of gold, silver, platinum, palladium, and rhodium with Auctus metals today.
We haven't seen the end of $100 silver this year. If you look at some of the bank projections, taking Bank of America or Goldman Sachs or Citibank, for example, they're calling for a much higher silver price as the year goes on.
Welcome to another Auctus Edge, where we look to give investors the edge they are looking for. I'm your host, Patrick Vieira. Michael DeRienzo, President and CEO of the Silver Institute, joins us today. Michael, welcome to the Auctus Edge. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much, Patrick.
Glad to have you back on. So many questions, so many things happening with silver. So we got to go straight to the source and really speak to someone who sees the ins and outs of it also. So glad to have you here. For viewers, though, who may not know the Silver Institute that well, what exactly does the organization do, and why is it such an important data source for the global silver market?
Okay, well, that's a great question. And, the Silver Institute has been around since 1971. It initially was more of a resource house where it would put out papers on silver and photography, silver and coinage. And over the years, it developed into a market development organization. So we put on programs that will hopefully chew up more silver at the end of the day. We're involved in various countries such as Mexico, Peru, China, India. We put out reports, of course, our World Silver Survey, which we will be putting out next month in New York City, and then 2 days later in Mexico, and then 3 days after that, we'll release it in India. That is considered by many to be the single source on the silver market. And we've been doing that for well over 42, 43 years or so. So, quite frankly, we also put out, reports on, we call them market trend reports. And those are various reports that look at specific aspects of the market. So, in recent years, we've done them on the price sensitivity of above ground stocks. This year, we're going to do one on bullion flows, above ground stock inventories. We've done them on AI. We've also done them on other aspects, smaller aspects of the market, of medicine and so forth. Important aspects to the silver market, but they may be a smaller end use when you look at issues like or applications like photovoltaics. So we also speak at many conferences. I just got back from PDAC in Toronto, where I spoke along with the World Gold Council, making the case for silver. They made the case for gold. We'll be going to India, where we'll be speaking on a whole host of industrial issues. I'll be going to Singapore to the Asia Pacific Precious Metals Conference. Later this year, we'll be going to Dubai. And of course, we'll also have a presentation, hopefully, at the London Bullion Market Association's annual meeting in October. So we do a lot with the little. We have about 32 members. We've grown that quite dramatically over the years. We've lost 2 members only because of acquisitions. A couple mining companies got acquired by other member mining companies. But by and large, we are moving strong. We work on a small budget. We don't have the resources that, for example, the World Gold Council has. So our money is spent wisely. And what we're here to do is to talk about all things silver.
You mentioned trends. I wanted to ask you, though, the silver survey is considered the industry's benchmark report. You mentioned some of them, but are there any trends that stand out for you in the global silver market right now?
Well, we're at what, $80+ silver today. Who would have thought that last year at this time? Took 45 years to get to $50 silver. It took a little less than 3 months to get to $100 silver. So the market is actually firing on all cylinders. And the trends that we're seeing today are, when you look at industrial applications, PV is still going to be very strong, although they're using less silver on some of these panels. At $85 silver, it's you can imagine that they'd be attempting to thrift out of it. But they've been attempting to thrift out since silver was at $13, when silver was at $13 an ounce. Um, so the number of installations will increase as the year goes on, and that will keep silver demand in that particular application pretty buoyant. Um, one of the newest things that we're really starting to dig our teeth into are these data centers that are propping up all across the world for the use of AI. Um, these are very highly intensive power storage areas, power deliverable centers, and they're needed across the world to continue with this AI threshold. So we think right now there's about 55 to 70 million ounces of silver going into these data centers. We think that number is only going to grow. But look at this is a demand center that really wasn't on the map 3 years ago. So things go, photography went, photovoltaics came, the green energy revolution is with us. That's going to require more power. And of course, if they're using electricity, if they're using solar, if they're using nuclear, or even if they're using wind, silver plays a component in all of those end uses.
You made a point about how the PVs, the photovoltaics, in some cases they are looking to use less silver. In some cases, they're looking to find even substitutes. But overall, let's say when we saw the silver price rise, there was talk of demand destruction, where the higher the price of silver goes, it may cause manufacturers or companies to substitute that silver for another material. Is that any immediate concern?
No, it's not. In speaking with several PV manufacturers over the course of the last 6 months, they mentioned to me that you would really, really see aggressive thrifting. I mean, they can maintain this. There's not a lot of silver being used in these solar panels when you look at an individual panel. It is the highest cost per panel. It's the silver, okay? Um, but they mentioned 135, 140 silver where it really begins to get critical for them. And we're not there just yet.
Yeah, I had to ask that question because I saw a report out from Thailand where there was a jewelry company, Pandora, where they were going to stop using silver in their jewelry and look to create platinum plated
Yeah, so what's
products
more
because,
expensive? $2,000 platinum or $85
yes.
silver? It makes no sense
Yeah.
to me whatsoever.
Yeah, that was exactly my thought as well. Where it's well, what are these guys talking about here? But well, anyway, their business. Um,
Exactly.
Yeah. So I just want to touch on we don't need to get political or anything like that with this one, but with the battles going on in the Middle East, how do you see this affecting the silver price, and both from an ETF perspective and then from a real case, use case, physical perspective?
Well, I mean, we have a lot of political and geopolitical uncertainty in the world, almost today more so than we had in many, many years. You've got wars in Israel, you got wars that are encompassing almost the entire Middle East at present. You've got the Russia-Ukraine war. Um, there are there are a lot of conflicts around the world, and people, when this occurs, look to put a portion of their portfolio into hard assets such as silver. And I think this trend is going to continue. Um, 2025 was a banner year for silver. We're having a great year in 2026 through the middle of the first quarter, and quite frankly, I think it does affect. What it could potentially affect down the road, however, is the flow of gold and silver from the Middle East to other portions of the world. We see what's happening in oil today, hit $120 overnight. It's somewhat stabilized, a little bit over $100 as we speak, But nonetheless, these are issues that have profound effects on the world's monetary system. And gold and silver stand to benefit um, if people look at these conflicts and decide that they want to put their money into a hard asset or an alternative asset like gold or silver. And I hesitate to use the word alternative because they were the first forms of money as we go back through history. And by no means are we as a Silver Institute hoping for more conflict around the world. It's just a fact that geopolitical concerns, inflation, the U.S. Fed's uncertainty with its ability to remain autonomous, the cutting of federal interest rates, which we are projected another couple throughout this year, all benefit silver.
Yeah, I agree. All benefit silver. You think this, the let's say the higher cost of oil, you think that may add to production costs for the primary and even secondary miners, where that may
Yes.
also push up
Yes. I mean, a
price.
lot of them are using alternative energy sources as we speak. And that question is a good one, but quite frankly, that question applies to all industries. Okay, if you're in a transportation business, if you're an airline stocks are down today, basically on the oil price. It's not just gold and silver. Yeah, so of course you'd have to extrapolate that it could have an effect on the overall all-in cash costs at the end of the day.
I'll go back a few weeks, January 30th, 2026. We saw that massive silver drawdown, close to some 30%. What was your feeling or thinking as you saw this happening?
Well, it was quite dramatic, right? And I've read several stories as to what was the impetus for this, at least taking silver, for example. Apparently, there was a position in China that needed to be covered. So they sold a heck of a lot of silver. That began the price going downward. Um, but look at new floors have been set for the silver price, right? I mean, silver is no longer a 25, 22, 30, 35, $40 metal. I mean, it is a metal that is trading for now and for the future. And listen, we haven't seen the end of $100 silver this year. If you look at some of the bank projections, taking Bank of America or Goldman Sachs or Citibank, for example, they're calling for a much higher silver price as the year goes on.
Right. Just want to ask you about the structural deficit as well. It's been there for several years with silver. How unusual is this, let's say historically, and how sustainable is it for silver to be in a deficit year after year after year?
Well, I think we are actually in our sixth year of a consecutive structural market deficit. And if you add up the years, including this year, you're looking at over 850 million ounces, which is approximately one full year of mine supply. And quite frankly, demand has been so strong, not only from the industrial side, but the investment side. Um, and there are no new real projects, silver-based mines that are coming to market. Um, there are some discoveries at existing mine sites. Okay. And that looks promising. We're calling for a small increase in mine supply this year of less than 1%. We think recycling is going to grow by about 5%, but nonetheless, that is just not enough to close the gap.
Right. You touched on that recycling. You think that's going to become a bigger component of the supply of silver?
I don't think so. When you look historically and you look at mine supply, or I'm sorry, recycling, it is higher. I mean, in 2015, it was 156 million ounces. We estimate this year that it could be upwards of 190 million ounces. So that's 40 million ounce difference right there. But at these prices, it should be expected. People trade in their gold for whatever reasons, and when they trade in their gold, whether it be jewelry or coins, they sweep their silver into it as well. But you're not seeing recycling from the industrial side as some of these people seem to claim on the internet. You're not seeing people going in to spend PV cells and extrapolating a lot of silver. You do see it with the electronics, and that's to be expected. And that really is the bulk of recycling to begin with.
Silver is often described as having that dual identity, both a precious metals and an industrial metal. Which side of that equation is driving the market today, the way you see it?
Oh, clearly it's physical investment. Okay, we think that physical investment is very strong, not only on the physical side, but also through ETPs. Last year, when we ended July, we had more silver going into ETPs than we did the entire previous year. From what I'm reading today, ETP investment in silver remains very, very strong. We're picking up in the United States on retail investment, coin and bar sales. We're doing very well in India and other parts of the world. So we think the investment side is driving silver today, and we're very pleased to hear that the United States is picking up as well, because for the longest time we were having issues in the United States, with not only with the premiums on silver coins and bars, but it's strengthened in recent months. And a few weeks ago, global ETP holdings stood at about 1.3 billion ounces. And if you think this product only came to the market 20 years ago next month, all right, the SLV came to the market in April of 2006. So 20 years ago, you've got about 1.3 billion ounces of silver that may have gone to other investment categories, but in ETPs.
Hey, Michael, what's the word from the refiners? Are they catching up with all the demand that's been out there?
No,
I mean,
they're not.
not yet?
They're not.
Okay.
They're running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I'm not talking just about the big boys. I'm talking about some of the smaller refineries too. Demand has been absolutely through the roof on the refining side.
Because we've seen here in Singapore where some dealers they put notices out where 2 month it's going to take 2 months before they actually get inventory, and I think the average person would start to think, wait a minute, now 2 months is so far away, the price can change a whole lot in 2 months. And what if the refiners or the wholesalers are not able to honor the orders that went in? So were you ever hearing anything at any time where
No,
things were getting a bit
the
sticky?
longest I've heard is just a couple of weeks. I haven't heard two
Ah,
months. Um, I
okay.
mean, they really are working around the clock to meet this overwhelming demand.
Gold silver ratio. How meaningful is that metric in understanding silver's potential upside relative to gold?
Well, it's really simple math, right? Okay. How many ounces of silver does it take to equal 1 ounce of silver with respect to the price? There's a lot of people who put a lot of weight into that ratio and they invest accordingly. Um, but there's a lot of people who really just don't pay much attention to it. So it's a metric that's out there. There are certain people who do look at that really closely, and there are others, like I mentioned, that don't. So look, it got to one of its lowest points in recent memory just this year. So I don't know where exactly it is today. I haven't done the math, but nonetheless, it's lower than it was 2 years ago or even at the beginning of 2024.
Yeah, for sure. I think it went down to mid 40s at one
Yeah.
point. But the gold silver ratio, a lot of people seem to look at that. And then through last year, I think a lot of people were starting to hear the word lease rates more and more and trying to understand lease rates. Um, from your point of view, what do lease rates tell us? And are they perhaps a better forward looking metric than the gold silver ratio?
I think they're very important. And there were two times last year where the market was stressed. Some people say the market was broken. It wasn't broken. It was stressed. And that was the first 3 months of the year leading up to the April 2nd Liberation Day announcement with respect to tariffs. A lot of metal was moving from the east to the west. It was parked off the shores in New York. They wanted that gold and silver there in the event that the president would put tariffs on gold and silver, primarily in Canada and Mexico. That didn't happen. A lot of the metal flowed back, but as a result, it created a tightness in London. They have about 750 million ounces of silver in London. Almost 75% of that is allocated towards ETP, so that can't move. That free float shrank quite dramatically. And then again in October, during the Indian holiday of Diwali, the market became stressed again, and as a result, lease rates really shot upwards.
Right. And I think most of us know, or we can see that the flow of metals, they're moving from west to east, India and China, really picking up on silver. India, industrial somewhat, but it seems more like a monetary metal. And then you have China, it seems more like an industrial metal. That dual role. Do you think with the U.S. putting silver on the U.S. critical minerals list, do you think that's going to impact the demand in some way?
Well, I'm not so certain it's going to impact demand dramatically, but it will have impacts. So, if you're producing silver in the United States, you will see a more streamlined permitting process. Um, you can see that, and we fought for that. We actually advocated to the U.S. government, along with some of our member companies, to include silver on the critical minerals list. And when it became official late last year, we were quite pleased that that was the result, because silver is a critical mineral. And not only is it a critical mineral, it's a strategic mineral and metal. And the United States has determined that there won't be tariffs on silver, because we rely in the U.S. for about 60% of the import of silver into our country, to meet our industrial and investment needs. So yeah, it's a very important. We're having conversations with Canada at present, some of our member companies are, about getting it included on their list. So yeah, it's quite encouraging.
When we saw silver fall from that about that $120 point down to the high 70s, we saw a lot of people get shaken up. They were really done with silver. They've had enough. They just very displeased. But short term, this is a very very a short term thing that happened. What would you say, looking at silver mid to long term?
Well, I mean, look at I think there's just a lot more room for the silver price to grow, and to attain those levels and even more as we move through the year. The fundamentals of the market are quite strong. We've already talked about the structural market deficit. We've already talked about green energy. We've talked about data centers and AI and photovoltaics and electric vehicles and so forth. These are categories are not going away. I mean, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. And in order for those applications to operate, you need silver. I mean, we like to say if it has an on and off switch, it has silver in it. And the green energy dynamic, the roads that lead to green energy are paved with silver, and to a big extent copper as well. So we think that the future of silver, from as a monetary asset, um, is quite strong.
All right, last question here, Michael. What do you think is or what would you say is the single most misunderstood fact about silver that investors should understand today?
Well, I think the single thing that they miss most is that, um, when you're looking at silver in relationship to gold, okay, these are both obviously precious metals. Silver has much more qualities than gold does. Gold primarily is used in jewelry and as an investment. It has a very small percentage of gold demand, is used in industrial uses. So I think that when you look at the gold price versus the silver price, obviously there's a huge difference of thousands of dollars. But the pure play into silver, either through ETPs or physical silver, is a strong way to diversify your portfolio. Silver historically has very enthusiastic followers, right? You just need to go to the internet to look at what people are posting every day. And quite frankly, I'm not so certain that enthusiasm at that level occurs for other precious metals. So it's good for silver. People are paying a close eye to silver these days. And we strongly believe that trend will continue.
Okay, Michael DeRienzo, head of the Silver Institute. Can you let the viewers know how they can follow you or get more of your insights?
Sure. Simply go to send an email to info@silverinstitute.org. Go to our website and sign up there. Sign up for our free bi-monthly silver news publication. And all of our publications are issued at no cost through the website. And you can also call us at 835 or 202-835-0185. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have on the market.
All right, Michael DeRienzo, I want to thank you for your time, and let's do this again soon and see how things
You got it,
unfold.
Patrick. I hope to see you in Singapore. Thank you so much.
Will do. Thank you also, Michael. Appreciate it. That was Michael DeRienzo, head of the Silver Institute, sharing his insights on the markets and silver. And this may be the year for you to reallocate your metals holdings. If you'd like to know how you can do just that, please do contact us at www.auctusmetals.com.